Hello, Ectosage here on the Sage channel. That is Sleep, Art Game, and Eat. And I originally wanted to make a video about half blocks and why I wanted them and how great I thought they would be in this game. But well, as I started working with some concept ideas for half blocks and actually some basic models, which I'm flying over here to demonstrate, I started to realize there was a bit of a problem. Now, when you're starting to build with these at first, it seems reasonable, right? You got these half blocks tossing in here. Wow, that's pretty cool, right? You can instantly come up with some cool variation between having a full-sized block and these half blocks. And it's pretty great, actually, to be able to throw all that in there. And maybe if you had some other custom blocks such as this, then provided that these all had actually the same texture on them, you'd find yourself with, oh, a pretty interesting thing set up right away and pretty quickly. But of course, you're having to build with blocks like this, which is what I used right here. And this block on its own works pretty well. And of course, if I wanted to make a whole slant up here, with it all offset as it is, I could then go into here and grab another special block I built, which is this one, and voila, build a nice big ramp as per usual, and who knows, maybe just bring that back there and keep on going like that. Now, this is all fine and dandy, but when you have something like this, and let's say if we had kept going with this over here onto the edge, and I'll actually make our own little testing platform for this, and we have our block here. Let's say you got to the edge where you were working on. Let's say you decided, you know what, I want to now take this around the edge. And basically like you would do with a normal block, as I'll demonstrate over here, with these, you would simply toss in a corner piece and voila, you've gone around the corner. Or if you wanted the smoother corner, you make it a bit wider and voila, you toss in this small piece right there, a few corner pieces, and now this, the normal equivalent of this block, would be tossed in and you'd have your nice smooth corner. Now, with this, because they are half blocks and therefore offset and strange, you find yourself in need of even more blocks. You can't just simply, basically like we did with that first corner there, just toss this in there and then have your joint, which I could actually do if I had the proper tool for it. But this is where you run into a problem. You start realizing that to have everything set up the way you would need, you basically end up with a million different types of blocks you need. There we go, I found what I needed there. But to carry on and make it even smoother, I would of course need this little middle block, and I didn't even think to build that until I started testing these out. So already, just to make that corner there, I've needed 2 extra blocks than just the half block slanted block. So it's instantly getting more complex. If I was just to try to make this go down, well, instantly we're going to run into problems because of this here. Now, really quickly, I'm going to do that. Tossing out some custom blocks here, like these, and stick that in there. And to fill this one in, I actually, again, find myself, I don't have the proper block I would need. Because I would need something that basically lines up with this, but still has a corner cut off. And you just end up in a whole world where, to make half blocks work, as they usually would, where you have a special block for a corner and all this, still using the basically square on one world, where it's square from above, but rectangular from the side, such as this, you end up with 1,000,001 different pieces that you're needing. Even just for this simple setup here, I've basically used an assortment of different pieces. I used this one twice, but if you want a proper half block, you're also going to want to be able to have half block pieces that are such as this here, where instead of having those set up like that, maybe you want it to duck back down, such as this. That's a whole nother piece I've just added right there. That is different from the original small bevel pieces I was using, like the one right here that I'm highlighting now and just looking at. So you end up with just so many different pieces you end up needing. It really ends up being chaotic. And actually, I'll demonstrate some more of what I was doing to test these out, and ideas behind that is this. This whole thing's just built out of different types of half block, and the idea that you can have these nice jetting out things. If I was to fly over here, we have another thing I built with half blocks and corners, little sharp corners. That's something we don't even have in the game currently, and it doesn't always look the best, even though I do think they should add it. And then down here I have some more just basically ship things I built with half blocks to demonstrate that half blocks are a good idea, right? Because you want to be able to have these thinner, narrower areas here where possibly you could fly a person there. I can't because the collision volumes on these are still bigger than the actual model, but the idea stands that this would be pretty cool. But as I just mentioned, you're going to find yourself with a serious problem of a billion different blocks, and that's just unreasonable to have so many different blocks. Now, what I'm going to suggest instead of this is that it's something beyond me. It's not just a block replacement. It's, even though my block replacements would never work because the models actually in game, I believe, are built out of, instead of just a physical model, they're just points and it automatically fills in the area. That way the texture can continue to flow between things. I think it's something like that. And also that way it's not rendering the back sides of these. It's also just instantly filling out the whole area inside, so it's not wasting polys, whereas mine, there's just polys behind the bits even though you can't see them. So it's troublesome. I don't know how to set that up, but what I would like the devs to do, using their special block stuffs that I can't comprehend, is take each normal block that you have and basically give us a new option of block. Instead of, on the right here, we have the small ship, the large ship, and station. I want something in between these, but I don't want it to show up here. What I want is, while you're building, down here to have, at where my buttons are at the base, maybe have some sort of toggle. Maybe have some sort of toggle that I can go down here at the bottom and click a small toggle that'll say medium ship block. Now, a medium ship block would be something basically in between big ship block and small ship block, but it would only be usable on large ships. So basically, once you say went down at the base of your screen and clicked the medium ship button, instead of me having this block showing up this size, it would show up more as, well, let's say, this is going to be overlay, this size. So it's a much smaller block. It's much easier to deal with. And then basically you would be able to build with that, building out the same things I've built with the half blocks. Now, that's just the basic idea. Basically, using that medium ship block, you could then use all of your normal building blocks that we already have here to build basically everything I've built already. So instead, using the medium ship block, instead of me just clicking once with my special 2 across block as I have right here, which is this one right here, instead of me just doing one click and placing that, I would just take the normal block as this, but since it's medium, it's going to be smaller. It'll be half the size actually of this block here. So I'd click twice with it, and with this basically, and voila, there you go. You'd have your 2 placed in there, which would look like that, except for with the proper texture and everything and forming, and therefore not causing more polys in the background, and it would be brilliant. And so then you could just basically build everything I did here. Up here would be the same sort of thing. You would take your normal slanted block, click twice to put 2 in there, voila, making that, and then you take your normal block, but of course you set the medium, click twice, voila, you'd have that, and then you just click, click and drag with control and shift and go out, and basically you'd fill out this whole bit here. There'd be more blocks than if they were just plain singular half blocks, such as the ones I actually am using here, but in the end it's going to be better because, for one, it's not going to have all the polys in the background that I currently have with this, which is troublesome, I feel, in the long run. And for two, once you get to the corners of stuff, as I was talking about earlier, instead of having to have 2 million different types of blocks for each of the half blocks and stuff, then voila, you'd instantly be able to just use your already existing stuff to place, well, where you need it without issues of that, and carry on going down more stuff. Now I can just go back to talking about the merits instead of half blocks of medium-sized blocks, which are basically the same thing, and just imagine that everything I've built here using my special little half blocks would be built out of medium-sized blocks that I just talked about. So then, this area I was showing earlier, the idea that you could fly in there, then really you could fly in there. You wouldn't have to worry about any collision meshes like I do. They would just be, it would just be brilliant. And of course, everything within the form is you're not using my custom models. The possibilities are great for this stuff. It can allow you to build even more ship detail like this without having to build up your ships to be extra large. They can still be small and slim, just with these little bits basically used for detailing and making stuff really nice. Down here I have another demonstration of that. This one's a bit different though. This is something you probably couldn't exactly do with medium-sized blocks because these goes far smaller. This is actually a special set of block that maybe I'd like to see, but I don't think it's really reasonable to have it. And this is just a block that has basically 2 plateaus on it, where it's got a single plateau there, the curve, and then another plateau. As cool as that is, I don't think it's really reasonable, but this was just me experimenting around with that. But then we come back over here and more of the proper half/medium blocks that I'd really like to see in the game, and all the possibilities they can come up with. It's because this, I started out with just saying, okay, let's use a basic singular half block. Here we go. We got this. Actually, it wasn't even this one. It was this one over here. So instantly using a half block or a medium block, you can add a whole lot of detail to something. Just that simple little line of it just instantly takes this, what would otherwise be a pretty nasty sharp edge right here. If I was to remove these, you can see it's just a pretty sharp edge. You have one right there, instant drop, another sharp edge. It doesn't look that great. You fill that in, and suddenly this sharp edge up here is almost a nice thing to have. It's sort of interesting. It makes us feel like maybe this is supposed to be a waterway instead of just a random chute or whatever. And that, of course, adds so much more detail, and I love it. And then I took this basic idea, I brought it up here, and basically said, okay, well, let's carry on with that. Let's carry on instead of just having a waterway or whatever. Let's make it the side of a big ship wall or the top of a bunker or something like that. And I built it up to keep on going, and I said, well, if we're going to have the top, we should have this like metal beam run across the top to make it all look like it's held down. But why have the metal beam, as I'm demonstrating over here, shoot up that high? It seems like a bit of overkill. Why not just use the half blocks to make it look a bit more streamlined and nice? And then I just carried on with that idea and kept on going. Why have the big blocks on the bottom? I can make those just streamline and shoot out. And I kept on going with that until I got over here and I said, well, you could have some interesting window designs too, using half blocks or medium blocks as I'm really wanting, such as these, where on the outside you have your half blocks here to block the window, and then on the inside you just have your full-size windows, or even in an ideal world you'd even have your medium-sized blocks where you have this, the vertical window up here at the top right. You click and drag that down to your bar, make sure you would be set to medium-sized blocks down there, and when you went to place those, again, you'd have that nice little selection placing area grid, and you'd be able to put proper little tiny windows in there. That way you'd have these nice tiny slits to look out of, and you'd really feel like you're on these really industrial tiny ships. And basically I kept on going with that idea, even saying, well, you could have something interesting on the inside of these to make it feel like these windows are inset a bit more than just that little tiny bit I just showed. You could basically use half blocks on the inside of your ship to expand the windows inside, and then you could put the proper actual window block in. I couldn't do that, of course, because I don't have any proper little window blocks yet. Anyway, I know I ranted a bit there, but I really, really want to see medium-sized blocks set up in that grid way. I think it would... Oh, God, the possibilities that could bring to this game and building, it's just... Anyway, if any of the devs are watching this, I'd like to say thank you, first off, for making a pretty damn awesome game, and I look forward to everything that's coming new in this game. And secondly, I'd just like to say I hope you guys like my suggestions. If you guys are already working on it, I'm glad to hear it. If you guys aren't, I'd like to humbly request you do, but if you decide not to, because you got more pressing things like, I don't know, survival or probably is something you're probably working on pretty hard right now, as well as other things, I understand. Anyway, thanks so much for you guys for listening, and normal viewers, which there's no such thing because everyone's a wonderful special butterfly. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time. And yes, I did just start building randomly while I was sitting here.